Damn it, this can't be happening. The voice belonged to Eliza Thorne, the 54-year-old CEO of Thorne Industries. She was literally sweating through her designer pantsuit, pacing her office like a trapped animal. In exactly 45 minutes, a delegation from the German-based tech giants, Innovatech, would arrive for the most crucial meeting in her company's history. A massive contract for next-generation AI processors was on the line, and her professional German translator had just called with a family emergency. "Mrs. Thorne, I've tried every service in the city," her assistant Robert reported, his voice a tight whisper. "It's the start of a long weekend. No one is available." The Germans are firm. German, only presentation, no exceptions. Eliza felt the weight of 300 jobs on her shoulders. Her late father's legacy, built over 40 years, could collapse completely if she lost this deal. The German delegation had already warned that they did not reschedule meetings. It was today or never. "There has to be someone in this city who speaks fluent German," she shouted, her fist hitting the desk. "Anyone?" A small, clear voice came from the hallway. "Dad, you forgot your drill on the cart." Eliza stopped abruptly. Through the half-open door, she saw a white boy of about 12 handing a tool to Mr. Henderson, the building's custodian for 15 years. The boy spoke to his father in perfect German, asking if he needed help with the equipment. "Robert," Eliza whispered, her eyes fixed on the boy. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what, ma'am?" "That child?" He was speaking German. Robert frowned. "Ma'am, that's Leo, Mr. Henderson's son. He just came to pick him up because school let out early." Eliza watched the boy more closely. Leo Henderson wore a simple school uniform, worn sneakers, and carried a patched backpack. At 12, he looked completely out of place in the sophisticated corporate environment, but there was a quiet confidence in his eyes that caught Eliza's attention. When Leo noticed he was being watched, he waved politely and smiled. "Mr. Henderson," Eliza called impulsively, stepping out of her office. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" The custodian approached nervously, clearly uncomfortable with his boss's sudden attention. "Is there a problem, Mrs. Thorne? Your son, does he speak German?" Mr. Henderson blinked, surprised. "Yes, ma'am. Leo is very bright. He taught himself German from the internet and the library. He dreams of studying engineering in Germany one day." Eliza felt a spark of desperate hope. "What level of German?" "Well," Mr. Henderson hesitated, looking at his son. "He translates for a local historical society that gets a lot of German tourists. They're always impressed." Leo approached, realizing he was the center of the conversation. "Can I help you, Mrs. Thorne?" he asked in perfect English. Eliza knelt down to his level, her mind racing. Betting the future of her company on a 12-year-old boy seemed insane. But what choice did she have? "Leo, I need someone who speaks fluent German for a very important meeting in 40 minutes. Would you feel comfortable helping out?" Leo's eyes sparkled with a mixture of curiosity and determination. "What kind of meeting are we talking about?" "A very important business meeting," Eliza repeated slowly, watching Leo with a mixture of desperation and skepticism. "It would be simultaneous translation for German executives discussing a $100 million contract." Leo nodded with an impressive seriousness. "I understand completely, Mrs. Thorne. I can do it." "Ma'am, with all due respect," Mr. Henderson interrupted nervously, "Leo is just a child. It might not be appropriate." "Dad," Leo interrupted softly in German, "let me show you what I can do." He then turned to Eliza in flawless English. "Mrs. Thorne, you need to know that I learned German because my late grandfather was a German immigrant who came to this country and worked as a mechanic. He raised me, speaking only German, until he passed away when I was 6. Eliza felt a tightness in her chest. The boy had lost his grandfather just as she had lost her father at the same age, but her business mind still resisted the idea. "Leo, this meeting is worth the future of the company," she said. "Then you've lost everything," he replied with devastatingly simple logic. "But if it goes right, you've gained everything. What's the real difference between trying with me and giving up completely?" Robert approached discreetly. "Mrs. Thorne, the Germans just confirmed they'll be here in 35 minutes. and security says there are reporters from the Financial Times in the lobby. If this meeting fails publicly..." Eliza ran a hand through her hair. Her family business, built by her immigrant father, was literally in the hands of a 12-year-old boy. The irony was cruel. She had always prided herself on being a progressive employer, but now that she truly needed to trust someone outside her usual circle, she felt her unconscious prejudices rising. "Leo," she said finally, "you understand these men are extremely demanding? They can ask complex technical questions." "I know," he replied calmly. "I've read about Innovatech online. They're known for being difficult, but also for respecting genuine competence." Eliza blinked in surprise. "You researched them?" "When Dad told me there was an important meeting today, I was curious and did some research in the school library during break." Leo smiled slightly. "I learned that the CEO, Mr. Fisher, lost his son 2 years ago in a construction accident that could have been prevented with better technology. That's why he invests heavily in structural integrity and automation." Mr. Henderson looked at his son with a mixture of pride and surprise. Even he didn't know Leo had researched the visitors. "Mrs. Thorne," Robert whispered urgently. "A message just came in. They're stuck in traffic and will be here in 20 minutes. Eliza felt the panic return. 20 minutes to turn a 12-year-old boy into a professional translator or watch her company collapse. "Is there anything else I should know about you, Leo?" she asked, desperate for any sign that she wasn't making the biggest mistake of her career. Leo hesitated for a moment, exchanging glances with his father. "Well, I also speak French and Spanish, and I've been participating in debate competitions at school in German. I won 3 first places this year." "Debate?" Eliza sat up straight. "What kind? Discussions about business ethics, corporate social responsibility, technological innovation?" Leo listed casually. "My teacher says I have a knack for logical argumentation and presenting complex ideas." Eliza looked at him in amazement. This was no ordinary child pretending to know German. He was a little intellectual who had unwittingly been preparing for this moment for years. "Mr. Henderson," Eliza turned to the custodian, "why didn't you ever tell me that your son was so exceptional?" Mr. Henderson looked down, embarrassed. "Mrs. Thorne, you've known my son for years, but you never asked about him. To you, we're just part of the furniture." The remark cut deep. Eliza realized that she really did see Mr. Henderson as an invisible employee, efficient but irrelevant. And now she discovered this humble man had raised an extraordinary son right under her nose. "Mrs. Thorne," Leo said softly, "you're worried because I'm young, aren't you?" The direct question left her speechless. "It's okay," he interrupted gently. "I understand perfectly. But do you know what the advantage of being underestimated is? You can surprise everyone." As Eliza struggled with her inner prejudices and the relentless clock, something in Leo's determined gaze began to awaken a feeling she hadn't felt in years. The same spark of daring her father had when he bet everything on a company no one believed would work. 15 minutes, Mrs. Thorne," Robert announced, his voice heavy with tension. "Security has confirmed that the German executives have just arrived in the parking lot." Eliza glanced at Leo, who stood calmly beside his father, as if discussing multi-million-dollar contracts was a routine part of his 12-year-old life. Something about that serenity bothered her. It was almost as if he had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. "Leo," she said hesitantly, "do you really understand the magnitude of what we're discussing? If something goes wrong, 300 families lose their jobs before Christmas." "I understand perfectly, Mrs. Thorne," he replied with disconcerting maturity. "But may I ask a question? Why are you more concerned with my age than my qualifications?" The direct question left her speechless. Mr. Henderson shifted uncomfortably, proud of his son's courage, but concerned about his boldness. "Mrs. Thorne," Robert interrupted, stepping closer, "can I speak with you privately?" Eliza followed him a few steps, lowering her voice. "Robert, this is insane, betting everything on a child." "With all due respect, ma'am, Robert interrupted, something he rarely did in 15 years of employment. "I grew up in the same neighborhood as Mr. Henderson and Leo." "I've known that family for years. Leo is no ordinary child." Eliza frowned, surprised. "What do you mean?" "He won a full scholarship to St. Jude's Academy, the most competitive prep school in the city. At the age of 10, he competes in academic debate tournaments against high school students and wins regularly." Robert looked her straight in the eye. "Mrs. Thorne, Leo Henderson is a genius, and we're wasting him because he doesn't look like what we expect a genius to look like." Eliza felt the weight of that revelation. St. Jude's Academy cost $40,000 a year and had a 5-year waiting list. How had a working-class family gotten a full scholarship? "There's more," Robert continued. "Leo also speaks Mandarin and Arabic. He teaches German to immigrants on weekends at the local church. Voluntarily." 12 minutes, shouted an assistant from the hallway. Eliza turned to Leo, who had listened to the entire conversation without flinching. "Why didn't you ever mention any of this?" "Because you never asked," he replied simply. "For years you greeted my father politely, but you never showed any real interest in getting to know our family. To you, we were just part of the scenery." The observation cut deep, echoing Mr. Henderson's words from minutes earlier. Eliza realized that she had systematically underestimated the people around her based purely on appearances and unconscious biases. "Leo," she said, her voice changing in tone, "if I'm entrusting this meeting to you, I need to know you can handle the pressure. These executives are known for testing translators until they break. They use specific technical jargon and ask trick questions." "I know," he replied calmly. "I read about their tactics online. Mr. Fisher often asks about European engineering regulations to test competence. His chief of staff, Mr. Holtz, likes to use regional German idioms to confuse American translators." Eliza blinked, impressed. "You researched them individually?" "During lunch at school. I also studied Innovatech's annual reports for the last 3 years, their recent acquisitions, and the technical presentations they usually require." Leo smiled slightly. "My grandfather always taught me that preparation is respect." Mr. Henderson nodded proudly. "My son never does anything halfway, Mrs. Thorne." 10 minutes, echoed again down the hall. Robert approached with a folder. "Mrs. Thorne, I've prepared executive summaries in German about our technology, just in case Leo can manage with the technical vocabulary." "May I see them?" Leo interrupted politely. Robert handed him the documents. Leo scanned them quickly, his eyes darting across the pages with impressive speed. After 2 minutes, he looked up. "There are a few terminology errors here," he said diplomatically. "On page 3, Automatisierung des Systems would be more accurate as Integrierte Systemautomatisierung. And on page 5, the term for predictive analysis is a little outdated." Robert and Eliza exchanged incredulous glances. A 12-year-old was correcting technical documents prepared by professional translators. "How do you know that?" Eliza asked, her voice betraying a mixture of admiration and disbelief. "My grandfather worked on industrial machines before he came to the United States. He taught me a lot about technical terminology in German. He always said that the right words can save lives, so it was important to know them perfectly." 8 minutes. Eliza made a decision that would change her life forever. "Leo, you're hired. But you need to understand one thing. If these men sense any weakness, they will exploit it mercilessly. It's not personal. It's German business." "I understand, Mrs. Thorne," he replied with that disconcerting serenity. "But can I give you some advice? Stop worrying about what they'll think of me and start focusing on why your technology can save lives. Genuine passion is universal in any language." As they walked toward the conference room, Eliza noticed something extraordinary happening. Leo's calm presence was transforming her own anxiety into determination. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't thinking about what could go wrong, but what could go right. "Mrs. Thorne," Leo said softly, "there's something you need to know about this meeting. Something that could completely change how you approach these executives." Eliza stopped abruptly. What do you mean? 5 minutes. Leo's eyes shone with a confidence that seemed impossible for his age. As if he knew something that would turn this desperate meeting into something completely different, something that no adult in the company had considered, but that a brilliant young boy had discovered in his secret research on the most powerful men in the German tech industry. "Mrs. Thorne," Leo said calmly as they entered the conference room. "Mr. Fisher lost his 12-year-old son in a construction accident 2 years ago. His name was Leon, just like me, but in German." Eliza stopped abruptly. "How did you know that?" "I researched beyond the business reports. I read obituaries, newspaper articles, personal interviews." Leo adjusted his school bag. "Mr. Fisher doesn't just invest in technology. He seeks redemption. He wants to save other children because he couldn't save his own son." 3 minutes. Eliza felt something fundamental shifting in her perspective. She was no longer seeing a child trying to help a desperate adult. She was seeing a young strategist who had prepared better for this meeting than she had. The elevator doors opened with a sound that echoed like a bell of destiny. Mr. Klaus Fisher emerged first, a distinguished 62-year-old man with perfectly combed gray hair. At his side, Mr. Hans Holtz, younger but equally imposing, carried a leather briefcase and the expression of someone accustomed to disappointing ill-prepared Americans. Eliza took a deep breath. "Gentlemen, welcome to Thorne Industries." "I am." "Good morning, Herren Fisher and Holtz," Leo interrupted softly in German, stepping forward with the confidence of an experienced diplomat. "I am Leo Henderson, and I will be your interpreter today. I hope your flight from Munich was good and that you were able to rest despite the jet lag." The silence that followed was absolute. The two German executives were completely paralyzed, their expressions changing from professional skepticism to utter amazement. Not only because of the boy's perfect fluency, but because of the diplomatic elegance of his presentation and the genuine concern he showed. "Mein Gott," Fisher whispered in German, his eyes filling with unexpected tears. "Your accent, it's perfect. Where did you learn to speak like that?" Leo smiled gently. "My grandfather was a German immigrant, sir. He raised me speaking German until I was 6. He always said that German was the language of the heart." Eliza watched fascinated as something extraordinary happened. Fisher slowly knelt down until he was level with Leo, his hands trembling slightly. "What is your name, my boy?" "Leo, sir, like your son." The world stopped. Fisher closed his eyes, breathing deeply. When he opened them again, there was a humanity there that Eliza had never expected to see in such a powerful executive. "Mrs. Thorne," Fisher said in English heavy with emotion, "in 25 years of international business, I have never met a translator so young and so well prepared. But there is something more important here than business." Holtz, equally moved, added, "This child has treated us with more respect and care in 2 minutes than many adults show in entire meetings." Eliza felt her worldview shatter and rebuild simultaneously. For 40 minutes, as Leo translated every technical nuance of the presentation with surgical precision, she watched a transformation she would never forget. It wasn't just translation. Leo was able to capture the emotions behind the words, the unspoken fears, the hidden hopes. When Fisher asked complex questions about ethics in AI and automation, he didn't just translate, he contextualized, explained, humanized. "Mr. Fisher is asking if our technology can prevent the structural errors that took his son away from him," Leo translated softly, his words laden with genuine compassion. That's when Eliza realized she wasn't just watching a business meeting. She was witnessing a session of emotional healing conducted by a 12-year-old boy who understood pain in a way that privileged adults could never comprehend. "Our technology," Eliza replied, looking directly at Fisher, "exists to ensure that no parent ever has to go through what you went through." Leo translated but added something of his own. "And I can promise you, sir, that every time the technology saves a life, your Leon will live on through that act of love." Fisher broke down in tears. A man who controlled $100 million, crying openly in a conference room because a child had found the words his expensive therapists had never been able to offer him. "Mrs. Thorne," Fisher said finally, wiping his eyes, "we're not going to invest just the $100 million we discussed. We will invest $200 million, and we want Leo to be our official ambassador for this project." Holtz nodded vigorously. This child understands the true purpose of technology in a way that adult executives take years to learn. Eliza looked at Leo, who remained calmly seated in his chair, as if securing the largest investment in the company's history was routine. "There is one condition," Fisher continued. "We want to establish a comprehensive educational fund for Lee University, exchange program in Germany. Everything paid for. This child should not be limited by financial circumstances." Mr. Henderson, who had watched everything in absolute silence, finally spoke. "Gentlemen, I don't know what to say." "Dad," Leo said softly in English, "remember how Grandpa always said that God puts special people in our path at the right moments? I think today we have all been those special people for each other." As the contracts were signed and champagne was served, Eliza realized something that would keep her awake for weeks. For years, she had walked down the hall ignoring Mr. Henderson and Leo, seeing them as invisible parts of the corporate landscape. She never imagined that she was ignoring the very person who would save her company and change her perspective on what it really meant to recognize talent. At the end of the meeting, as the Germans said their goodbyes with warm hugs for Leo, Fisher whispered to Eliza, "Ma'am, you didn't just hire a translator today. You discovered a treasure that was hidden right in front of you." But the biggest revelation was yet to come. Because while everyone celebrated the unexpected success, something in Leo's bright eyes suggested that this meeting was just the beginning of an even bigger story. A story that would show the whole world the price of underestimating people based solely on appearances. 6 months later, the transformation at Thorne Industries was visible from the moment anyone entered the building. The portrait of Leo Henderson, now 13, smiled from the main wall of the lobby as the youngest corporate ambassador in American history, next to a gold plaque. Innovation and inclusion. Recognizing talent where we least expect it. Eliza watched from her office window as Leo led a tour for Japanese executives interested in expanding the project to Asia. His fluency in Japanese, discovered only the week before, had impressed the visitors so much that they decided to double their initial investment. "It's surreal, isn't it?" Robert commented, approaching with the quarterly reports. "The company has grown 400% since that meeting. Leo has become a case study at Harvard, MIT, and Stanford." Eliza nodded, still processing how a child had demolished decades of unconscious prejudice in a single afternoon. What had begun as desperation had turned into the most profound revolution her company had ever experienced. "Mrs. Thorne," Leo's voice echoed through the intercom, "the Japanese executives would like to discuss implementing the technology in Tokyo. Can I schedule that for tomorrow?" "Sure, Leo, and thank you." The routine had changed completely. Mr. Henderson was no longer just the invisible custodian. Eliza had promoted him to operations supervisor, finally recognizing that the man who had raised an extraordinary son possessed leadership skills that had been systematically ignored for years. Grandpa always said that people only see what they want to see, Leo had explained during an interview on the country's most watched morning show. But when you stop judging by labels and start listening to hearts, you discover incredible talents in unexpected places. The program had generated millions of views, turning Leo into a global symbol of how talent is wasted when we limit our vision with prejudice. Eliza recalled the call she had received from Fisher the week before. "Ma'am, our hospital in Cologne has saved 120 lives using your technology. Leon taught us that investing in people means investing in miracles." Even more impressive was how Leo remained completely unchanged by his success. Every day after his duties as an ambassador, he returned home to the same neighborhood, helped his father with the housework, and continued teaching German to immigrants at the local church. "Money is just a tool," he had explained to the Forbes reporter who wanted to understand how a teenager managed a $2 million education fund If you don't use a tool to build something good, it's useless. The interview had gone viral, inspiring hundreds of American companies to reevaluate how they identified and developed talent within their own organizations. That afternoon, Eliza received an unexpected visitor. Michael Peterson, CEO of rival Peterson Corp., was waiting nervously in the lobby. Peterson had lost 3 major contracts to Thorne Industries in recent months, all negotiated directly by Leo. "Eliza," Peterson said, clearly uncomfortable, "I have to admit that I completely underestimated what you've built here. My company has lost talent for years because we focus solely on pedigrees and appearances." Eliza smiled, remembering how she herself had thought just 6 months earlier. "Michael, what I've discovered is that true talent grows everywhere. We just need to stop looking where we've always looked." Peterson sighed. "I'd like to propose a partnership. We want Leo to help us review our hiring and talent identification processes. We're willing to pay whatever it takes." "I'll ask him," Eliza replied. "But knowing Leo, he'll probably want you to invest in educational programs for underserved communities." That's exactly what happened. Leo agreed to consult for Peterson Corp., but only if they created a $5 million scholarship fund for young people from inner-city communities. "Everyone has an incredible story," Leo explained to Peterson during their first meeting. "The difference is who has the opportunity to tell that story, and who has the opportunity to be heard." 6 months after that life-changing meeting, as Eliza watched Leo explain advanced concepts of artificial intelligence to executives from around the world, she realized she had learned the most valuable lesson of her career. True success doesn't come from finding people who are like us, but from recognizing greatness in places we never thought to look. Mr. Henderson appeared at the door, now wearing his new supervisor's uniform. "Mrs. Thorne, Leo asked me to remind you about the meeting with the Chinese investors at 3:00. He has reviewed all the technical documents in Mandarin." Eliza shook her head, laughing. "Mr. Henderson, can I ask you a question? How did you raise such an extraordinary son?" Mr. Henderson smiled proudly. "Mrs. Thorne, Leo has always been this way. The difference is that now someone is paying attention." As she watched Leo lead yet another meeting that would generate millions in contracts, Eliza realized that desperate meeting 6 months ago hadn't just saved her company, it had saved her ability to truly see the people around her. The best part? Leo was just getting started. At 13, he was already planning to start his own corporate inclusion consulting firm with a simple mission: to help companies discover the talent that's right in front of them. But they haven't learned to see yet.